It's the ogre berry. I don't like the look of its neck, but it's alright. It's still coming up. Just a lot of movement. The one back there, the girl crush, looking fantastic, and also it had that dark neck thing going on, so not too scared about it. I think it'll be alright. In this video, I'd like to talk about mainly the reason why I chose these genetics, because I don't think 2020 Mendocino is particularly well known. I mean, I hadn't heard of them before I stumbled upon their cultivars. I found it on Seed Finder, just looking through different genetics, and one of the things was Whiskey Zulu. I think it came up on the side of one of the strains that I was looking at. I was like, Whiskey Zulu, is that KwaZulu from the African landrace? And I don't think it is now looking at it. I don't think it has anything to do with the Zulu, KwaZulu. But regardless, I stuck around after having seen Whiskey Zulu, which I inevitably ended up purchasing as a freebie. But I stuck around because the 2020 Mendocino offers a lot of cultivars that have these fermented fruits or overripe fruit flavors. And that to me really is of interest. I personally want to, not for smoking in the immediate term or in the near future, which I am obviously interested in, but I'm more interested in the fermentation process of cannabis and how it relates to preserving certain terpenes. I've read recently through my first season, after finding that the curing process can be done multiple ways, and ultimately the idea is just to, obviously to stop molds. And I had taken a class in college about fermentation, so I know a little bit about very little bit about fermentation. I didn't know you could ferment cannabis, but in Malawi, this is a very well-known thing. It's considered the best weed in the world, actually, so it's not something that it's not that niche, but anyway. People in Malawi, they've traditionally cured their cannabis through fermentation, thus eliminating molds through encouraging certain beneficial bacteria and keeping an environment at a certain temperature and moisture down to a certain level to only encourage the beneficial bacteria to grow there and discourage the other bacteria, molds, yeasts from growing that destroy the cannabis. And currently in my mind, that it's that for this upcoming season and the next season, in my mind, I think ultimately the preservation of certain terpenes and terpene profiles is best suited for fermentation. I think in the past we've, as growers, accidentally, not truly accidentally, but accidentally, maybe we didn't mean to ferment initially in America, but realized that that's ultimately the best way to go about saving these certain terps. And I think we've lost that. I think the roadkill skunk terps that have been supposedly bred out of existence are not actually bred out of existence, but we've learned to preserve cannabis in different ways since the 80s, and all leading toward the preservation of these certain terps and getting away from the preservation of these certain volatile terps. These volatile organic compounds, I remember seeing a lecture by Kevin Jodrey like 7 years ago on YouTube, something like that. It's like 7-year-old lecture. He said that the volatile organic compounds associated with certain skunks are produced by alcohols and esters. And naturally, obviously before the bud is bucked, and thus, before the plant is chopped. And in my opinion, the way to preserve those terps is not just by any curing process, but by trying to mimic in certain ways how growers in the past have preserved their buds. I remember in my youth purchasing bud from like a hot car that, that's where the bud was put after a drying process. I remember the guy who grew it on the farm, and they kept it in the car because, for legal purposes, essentially. And that's a very prohibition tactic for creating a place where the buds can stay in a certain environment, and you know that the mold won't come and take it. And you know the car gets hot as fuck in there, right? You know, that's ultimately something that we have to think about, I think, when assessing the previous methods at which the people have come to ferment their cannabis. I believe that in this effort to process your cannabis as fast as possible so that the law doesn't come and take it from you and take you away too, they've accidentally preserved certain, well, maybe not accidentally, but have come to preserve certain terpenes that nowadays we don't see being preserved in concentrate form and bud form. It seems like every few years you see more and more, you see, you know, a bunch of people going, where did these roadkill skunk terps go? I don't think they went anywhere. I think that we have access to them, but we've changed our preservation methods so much that we've forgotten what it means to preserve cannabis, what we're actually trying to do. We're just trying to fight off molds and maintain a certain beneficial bacteria there that isn't the bad bacteria, the good bacteria, you know? And so when it comes to 2020 Mendocino ultimately choosing their cultivars, I was very interested in the fermented fruits, those flavors, the fermentation, the ones that are clearly coming from fermentation or alcohol. Well, yeah, fermentation, alcohols and esters, which are both produced by alcohols, both produced by the process of fermentation on the bud itself. So the preservation of these things is where I'm going with my growing experience. I'm trying to figure out if I can maybe bring something back that we've lost with years and years of trying to produce the best cannabis we can for a market, the best way we can do it, the fastest way we can do it. We might have lost something that we accidentally stumbled upon multiple times over as a completely viable way to go about preserving. Now, I understand this idea is not popular because it adds extra time to the process. That's not something that will often be adopted by a company today. It will not. Adding any amount of time to the process will increase the product price and decrease how much money you're getting from each crop. So ultimately, I think the idea here is more niche, more for organic growers or people that connoisseurs, people that really want that final product that you can chew on and get you high. It has a velvety smoke, has a better smoke, better tasting smoke, multiple ways, no chlorophyll, not harsh. That's ultimately something that you don't really, and it's shelf stable. That's another part of this, is that it becomes a shelf stable product that improves with time, rather than the dried cannabis degrades with over a year's time. Right now, for maybe a few years' time, you don't see it improving with like vintages or whatever. But we'll see what happens.